Alrighty, let's see if we can get some people to join up here first before we get started.
Interesting turn of events.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, quite a bit going on this afternoon as well. Alrighty. Let's see if get some more people joining in.
We're interested to see if say about my friends are hanging around, the wrong characters here.
Yeah, we're starting to get some people to join in now. We'll let this here run for a couple of minutes, get some more people to join up, and then we'll get started on this here. Do a quick introduction, tell everybody what's going on and what we're trying to accomplish here. Yeah, that's, oh man, I've been into a lot of contacts this afternoon. Don Eubanks.
Yeah, rightly so.
Yeah, we talked about it some. Alrighty, everybody. Happy Wednesday, are we? Wednesday evening. We're doing a live video to give you a recap from the meeting last night. In addition to bringing some information that's coming out, to give you a heads up for what's going to happen tomorrow at the city meeting regarding the rate increases. So let's get started with what happened at the county meeting last night. It was pretty interesting. We kind of got started on it ahead of time. We were looking at things and trying to figure out exactly what was going to be entailed is regarding the people having a chance to talk about the residential home inspection program, which seems to be a very hot topic. This is Blake Mitchell to the left of me. He's actually an attorney. Blake and I did some research before the meeting just to see, to make sure that there was legal standings for people to comment during this meeting. And the reason being is when you get into a special called meeting, the public comments have to remain on point with anything that's on the agenda. It's not where you have free float where you can just talk about anything. Special call meeting is very tight. But what the mayor did in the agenda, he actually used a forward slash on that line item regarding the approval of the minutes from back in the February 25th meeting. And this is where the vote took place for the residential home inspection program. But he used a forward slash and then he put residential home inspection program. And this is what Blake had, we had determined, and this is what he decided to do. So he was the first one to get up and talk during the public comments. And I'll let him kind of give you a heads up on exactly what he put out there to begin with.
So I just wanted to address right off the bat that I believe, based on my interpretation of it, that you could reasonably interpret it to be just about the minutes or about the residential inspection program. And in the state of Tennessee, we have contra pro referendum. That's where we follow the law and we apply it so that it is construed against the drafter when there's something that could be ambiguous. And so with that being said, with there being reasonable interpretation to go both ways, I said that either one should be fine. And so that's why I wanted to get up first and just address them and say that, I believe that the public has a right to comment on this based on what was put forward. And seeing as the time that they voted on it originally in February, they did not allow public comment beforehand when the topic was discussed. I wanted to ensure that people had the opportunity to discuss this with their elected representatives. I think that's paramount to our democratic republic.
Agreed.
So that was the reason why I addressed them first. Like I said, I didn't say one way or another. If I agree with it, disagree with it, don't want it, hate it, like it, love it, like I said, I just wanted to make sure that the people there could express their opinion to everyone, because I think that's what the elected representatives need to know in order to make their vote based on the people that they represent. Once again, that's their job as your representative. It's not to voice their opinion, it's to voice the voice of the people, and that is their constituents. So,
alrighty, getting on to this there, the first person who got up and really had any longevity in conversation was Ray Henry. And the mayor and Ray kind of went back and forth a little bit. Ray was given a history lesson. The mayor didn't want that. He wanted him to stay on point. And Ray got talking about what we call tent city subdivisions. There's I know there's one up there off of Mount Gilead Road, Peregrine Estates. There's Whiskey Ridge, and there was another one that he mentioned in the meeting last night. But Ray wanted to talk about those because that seems to be what spurred the conversation about the residential home inspection program. The mayor kept addressing him, that's not residential home inspection, that's not residential home inspection, that's not residential home inspection. And eventually had Ray escorted back to his seat by the sheriff. And the next person that gets up to talk was Tracy Chambers. When Tracy got up, the first thing she did is she turned to Ray and apologized to Ray. And said she felt bad for him, that he should not have been treated the way he was, which spurred the mayor to have Tracy removed from the podium, so she really never got to address the commission in that regards. Eventually, some more people got up and talked, and then Tommy Page, commissioner out of District 2, got up and to talk about everything. And the first thing he got in there, and he spent most of his time talking about, was the exact same subdivisions that Ray Henry wanted to talk about, and the mayor allowed that to happen. And pretty much what they're saying is the way these properties are set up is a timber company owns that tract of land, and they subdivide it off into smaller plots, and they have sold these plots to people. Now it's like a buy here, pay here, and what happens is that people never receive the deed to the property, so it still belongs to the timber company. Now a question I have brought up afterwards with the commissioner is, have we gone back in, the property assessor gone back in and reappraised these properties to say, hey, look, these are now subdivisions, and we need to make sure that we're being paid tax based on residential subdivision lots, and then taxing these timber companies who are doing this here. Bottom line, if you hit them in the pocketbook, it might change things. But that's kind of where the push is they want to pass this home inspection program. Now, there's other issues that's involved here. We've got houses that are being built that are subpar. The mayor's nephew apparently has purchased a house that they tapped into the wall and they found no insulation.
No insulation. Yeah.
So that's now he's going to have to spend a lot of money to get insulation put in his walls. Which you don't have to tear the walls out. You could probably just drill holes, pop in, and just blow in insulation to resolve it. But still, it's a costly venture. We also have heard about the house out at Joy Lane, which was the contractor out there was Anthony Melton. And if you don't remember the name, Anthony Melton was the one that the mayor was pushing both times the TIF went back in front of the commission. Anthony Melton was going to be the contractor to build the houses out there on Timberlake Wildersville Road. So that was who the mayor was pushing, which, now we're come to find out that he's got a lawsuit against him for the house out there on Joy Lane. I'm not going to get into a lot there, but I want to talk about that house for just a minute and in reference to permits and inspections. Right now, the county does not have any building permits or inspections except for electrical. Now, sewer is a different thing because that actually gets inspected too, but that's kind of done before construction ever starts. But the electrical inspection, that is required for every new build in the state. Anything that's being done where electrical is being pulled requires a permit and an inspection. Now, I do want to bring up the point, when the pictures were shared of the house at Joy Lane, there was electrical wires that were just hanging dead end under the house, sitting on top of the ductwork. Now consider that there. Some of the things I've heard is there's electrical switches, there's electrical outlets that were not working, there's been all kind of electrical problems. This is a house that was permitted and inspected by the state to do electrical inspections. It kind of lays the fact that right now is what do we gain by having these permits and inspections if they're not going to take and ensure that the quality of construction meets code? Leaving a wire dead-ended, if nothing else, it should be in a junction box and sealed off. We don't know if that's a live wire sitting on there. But regardless, a wire should never be left dead-ended. But we really need to take a look at things when we're looking at permits and inspections. Now, for you guys may not know, this is city-related, but over in Pope subdivision, there's houses being built over there right now. We've shared pictures of those houses where the foundation is cracking and pulling apart and separating, and those houses are past inspection to the point where they are actually bricking up some of those houses, and they're actually doing some support walls. to try to shore up those. I think they brought an engineer in here, but the damage was done. The point of it is, it got past that inspection point to the, which, how did that happen? And this was being a permitted and inspected house in the city of Lexington, who has a building inspector. You know, it's one of these things I hate to bring up, but you know, we just got to be honest about stuff. You know, it just so happens that contractor is the brother of the building inspector. You know, it goes back to a conversation that was had last night by a contractor at the meeting. He was all for the permits and inspections, as long as the buddy system did not get involved in it. And that's one of the things that we do have to be conscientious of in this, all of this here happening. But moving along to what Tommy Page would put out there, he did bring it back up to chicken barns and started having a conversation about that. Now, he put out information that wasn't factually correct. And I'm not going to get too deep into it, but I will say this here. You know, Tommy said that he was up there helping us. At the very first meeting that was held at Westover, Tommy Page went out there to that meeting and he addressed that community. And what he told them was he was not aware of the chicken barns coming. Well, later on, during the when everybody's digging into it and finding out stuff, come to find out Tommy Page didn't know. And when he was questioned about those chicken barns, well, I thought you all knew about that. Yeah, I knew about that. I thought you all knew about it. So he changed the story. It lends to credibility if you really want to look at it. But, you know, he talked about how the people out there at Westover had no impact on those chicken barns. That's absolutely not true. From the get-go, I was contacted by a friend of mine who lived out there. I got involved. I was involved in negotiating the property with the 3 property owners out there. The 24 barns were going up. From start to finish, I stayed there with Rick Taylor and Nick Mock as they came together, sat in Rick's garage. As Nick and him, you know, worked out the deal and to get everything done, I negotiated back and forth with the sellers, got the price down a little bit more, make it easier for Nick and Rick to absorb the cost from it. But yes, Rick Taylor he put up the bulk of the money. Nick Mock put up a good chunk of change, and those two actually saved that community. But if it wasn't for the community, that never would have happened. Getting back to the meeting, following Tommy's comments, there was people who were for the permits and inspections. And the tone kind of changed. The mayor was a little more accepting of their comments, I guess is a good term.
Yeah, that would be good.
He kind of allowed the mayor and stuff to address things. And there's a couple of other points in there. The use of the term ISO in regards to the fire departments. Now, let me tell you right now, before we even get into this here, I am pro-fire department. I was a huge fan of Lynn Murphy. And I'm going to tell you right now, Cody Ussery, and the conversations we've had so far, I'm very impressed. But I can't give a huge enough thanks to our firefighters. I mean, these guys are volunteers that go out on their own, and probably the most hazardous job in this county. They really do a bang-up job. And they have worked hard to get us to an ISO 5. And I agree with that there. Blake and I both talked to Cody afterwards about it. And I'll let Blake jump in here for a little bit so I'm not hogging all the time. And then I'll follow up some information that I detected today in regards to the ISO.
Yeah. So one of the main, I guess, things that, you know, I guess has been somewhat pushed and portrayed by, at least I know the mayor, was that this regional, or this building inspection program, the residential building inspection program, would increase our ISO, it would lower insurance premiums. There's some truth to that, but it's been stretched, I believe. So there's a point system in order for you to get to a lower ISO. Would it increase and give us some points towards that? Yes, it would. It would not be any amount of like meaningful points or statistically different points to where we're going to go into the next level and get a difference in our insurance premiums. When I was talking to Cody about it, the main thing that he said was personnel, staffing. That with ours being largely a volunteer fire department in the county, one of their rating mechanisms is the full-time employees there. And we don't have a whole lot of that because we have so many wonderful people that want to participate as a volunteer fire department. So, that being said, there's no way we can really, with just a residential building inspection program, get us there. there's other things that would have to happen in order for us to reach this level, in order for us to reach the next level and be able to lower insurance premiums. That being said, too, your insurance premiums aren't going to drastically decrease. It's not going to be a 30% or 40% reduction in your insurance. I mean, I would probably say somewhere statistically 5 to 10% at most. Not saying that's not fantastic. Insurance is high and it continues to go up. But that's not going to be the means to get us to that next level. Like I said, it's going to be, from what Cody said, talking about hiring more full-time people. There's also 3 other areas within the county, the smaller areas kind of out in more timber company ground, larger tracts, where we don't have, they're not within a certain amount of mile radius from a fire station now, and so we would have to cover those areas. He said those 2 things together would probably get us to the next one, but once again, we're talking pretty major expenses. And just so everybody's kind of aware too, an ISO 5 is a fantastic fire rating. In fact, the regional planner from Southwest Tennessee Development District says like he's astonished that we're able to maintain that with a mainly largely volunteer fire department. We're, if I'm not mistaken, like in the top counties in West Tennessee, if not the whole state, that like I said largely have a volunteer fire department. For instance, Madison County is at a 6, and like I said, we're at a 5, which is better. We are improved over them. And like I said, that speaks volumes about the people that we have here and the wonderful citizens that, like I said, participate in this and make it to what we have, where we're all willing to take care of each other. I don't know if you want to go on to the next subject we kind of discussed.
And I'm just going to add one more thing too. I decided to reach out to a couple of insurance agents this morning in regards to the ISO ratings. And both of them, again, the same as what we're saying. They're raving about our county fire department because they do such an outstanding job and they have gotten us to this point and is maintaining it. One even said that, you know, the peers across the state and probably other states view us in a higher standards. I mean, we're up at the top. And that is a true testament to the men and women who are on our fire department. I mean, we're fortunate. One thing that was talked about is the city has an ISO 2 rating, and to help you understand that, there is they have 3 city fire stations within the city limits, and they have a very small market they're working with. All paid firefighters. In addition, Station 7 for the county is sitting here in the city, and that becomes that's a support through mutual aid, a support station for the city if needed. And now with the announcement of rescue squad falling under the fire department, that's going to come about. That's going to add another station into the city. So there's some, it's easy for them to maintain an ISO 2. But the difference in insurance rates between that ISO 5 and that ISO 2, it's pretty negligible. It's not a huge difference whatsoever. So it's kind of it's a little bit misleading to sit there and say that the ISO plays a major part in this. But moving on, what else you want to go in with this here?
So, at the end of the day, one of the things that was actually voted on about the planning, the permitting for residential building was that the vote did fail. I don't know if we want to talk about, how the vote actually went down and how it took, 2.5 months to approve.
Yeah. If you paid attention to the page, we put up posts. If I remember correctly, I believe there was 5 copies of minutes, 5 different copies of the minutes from that meeting before it was finally announced that it did not pass, and we saw the 6th copy last night get voted on. That's 5 different ones. And I don't know where it was ever construed that the mayor actually cast a vote in that, because once we got a public records, Blake made a public records request of that audio recording, because it wasn't that clear in our video, because as you all know, the sound in our video is not the best in the world. And I use earbuds to go back to listen to it, which helps a lot. But even then, I miss something. If it's something that's whispered, I just can't hear it. But getting that audio recording, it clearly showed that the mayor never cast a vote. So how the minutes started with him casting a vote, I have no clue, because it never happened. And even during the meeting, I mean, it was stated that it passed 7-6, which that means he never cast a vote. After the meeting, I confirmed that with the clerk. So I don't understand how that came about where he actually placed the vote. Then, of course, you know, the minutes got changed. We continued to argue that it did not pass in accordance to state law, which at the planning commission, I believe it was April 4th that we went to. We went to the last planning commission, and that's when the mayor announced it to the planning commission that it did not pass. Now, something in that meeting that most of y'all are probably not aware of, but the mayor did address, I believe it was Mark White that asked the mayor if this was going to be brought back up in front of the commission again. And the mayor said yes, but he's got to educate the commission. So last night he was led us to believe that this is a dead stick and there's nothing else going to be done about it. But at that meeting, he left us with the impression that, yeah, we're going to bring this back up, but I've got to educate the commission on the permitting and inspections. Which leads me to question, why did he wait until that point to want to educate the commissioners before they ever placed a vote on it? I mean, that should have been done before the meeting where they voted on February 25th. They should have been well aware of it. Now, I've actually had access to the commissioners' meeting packets. I can see a copy of it whenever I need to see it, and I've gone back in and looked, and they just never had any information. It was more of a process. This is what's going to happen here. We're going to, we have to opt in or opt out. We opt in, and then we let the state come over here and inspect it, and we've got a wonderful state inspector, blah, blah, blah. And that's about it.
You had the fee guideline.
Yeah, and the feed guideline, yeah. We knew what we were going to be charged for.
Yeah.
Yeah, always. But when that came about, the commissioners had no information. Now, I queried Commissioner Andy Anderson. He voted no at the meeting on February 25th. And I talked with Andy after the meeting, and I asked him questions. I asked him, I said, am I going to be required to hire a contractor to come in here and do the construction work? And he had no answer. I asked, what if I build a deck on my house? Do I have to have a permit for that since it's attachment to the house? He didn't know. There was questions that I asked of him, and he didn't have the information. So he was not properly educated beforehand. And every commissioner that I talked to, and I talked to multiple commissioners following that meeting, they simply did not have the information to be able to share with the citizens. And that's a problem when they have to go in and vote on something, and they can't answer questions of their constituents. They need to be made aware of what's going on before they vote on it, so they can share it with you. They can't have a conversation with you, which I'm going to take this back to the Tommy Page conversation last night in the meeting. He said he had, 75 to 85 people over in his district met at a fire station because they wanted to talk about it. Well, how did he have information to talk with his constituents, but other commissioners I talked to didn't have that information? I question things like this here because it begs the question. If we don't, how are certain people knowing certain information and certain people don't know it? That doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I said it got pretty heated. Now, there's some other stuff that happened, transpired in that meeting that we're not going to address at this moment here. We'll get around to it because we want to try to keep this a little bit as short as possible. Wow. Well, over 100 people are up here watching right now. Thank you, guys. Let's get into the city meeting. I think that would be a good thing to address because that's coming up tomorrow. Now, this here is about utility rates. Blake and I have looked over. We were both at the meeting. We heard what was said. We watched the presentation. We've actually, Carissa took screenshots, which she made a post on the page that's got the screenshots. I want to bring you back to the budget last year, last summer, a little less than a year ago. The commission the utilities gave a pay raise. And I know pay raises are a contentious issue, and we're not going to get into that there. But the commission gave a pay raise because the alderman did, the Board of Aldermen did. The board gave that raise because they were told by the department head and the city recorder that there was excess funds in the utility department. Okay. Well, if we got excess funds, here we are less than a year later, and at that meeting, it was $2.182 million, I think, was what they're saying we're short now.
Yeah. Annually.
Annually, yeah. So they want to raise the rates up, which is the city folks are gonna pick up all three because they'll have sewer. Outside of Parker's Crossroad does have sewer, but if you've got water, gas, and sewer, your bill's gonna go up $1680 per month. Now remember this here, that $1680 is gonna generate revenue for utilities. Something we can't forget about in here too is their taxes. Now utility rate tax is a little bit different, but I calculated this. It's roughly going to be about $18.50 per month is what it's going to pick up on for people who have water, sewer, and gas in the city. I bet the question is if we were doing good less than a year ago, where we could give out raises, and now we're shortfalling $2.2 million almost. How are we off that much? How are we not questioning before a vote? What bothered me is that passed 6-0, and let me tell you, when that vote came about, I asked some questions. Patrick Cherry really got up and asked some outstanding questions. He did a phenomenal job, and that kind of led me into going back in there because he was asking about automatic increases. Well, nobody was addressing it, but yes, there are automatic increases with this rate. Next year it's going to go up. Gas, sewer, and water is going to go up again, and the year after, and the year after, and the year after. There's automatic rate increases. Now the board can go in there and say, we don't want the rate increases.
Right.
But there's that old thing is, it's easier to ask for forgiveness than it is for permission.
Right.
So once they've got the permission to do it, it's going to be, it's going to change up a little bit. But just so you're aware of it, this is what we're looking at.
Yeah. And the other thing that Patrick brought up was the fact that does it make us just relax on our laurels and we continue to just live off of this cost of living increase that they're trying to plan in and not actually do any real budgeting and looking and forecasting based on what we actually need and are observing in real time. We just relax and we'll get another 2 to 5% depending on cost of living, inflation, and we'll relax on that. And it doesn't take into account, well, maybe we're way ahead, or maybe we need drastically more to solve some of the infrastructure problems we're seeing. It's expensive, but that being said, anybody can look around and see that we have lots of different problems, from stormwater runoff to sewage being one of the main things that was highlighted there.
Yeah.
It was at 68%.
68% is what they were showing.
Yeah. So, like I said, there are issues that definitely need to be addressed, and they're not cheap issues. It's definitely expensive, and they continue to be compounded by people that are trying to essentially short circuit some of this planned development, and trying to put in subdivisions that are essentially at the very end of some of our lines, especially for electric that we service in, or places that are already experiencing shortages in power, lights flickering and things like that during the summer high use months. And like I said, now we're trying to add another 108 homes on them, or it's very expensive to run new main lines all the way down there to supply this. And like I said, if we're not going to take that into account and have these developers pay for a portion of it, the ratepayers, which is not just the taxpayers within Henderson County. There's also in Decatur and
I think we got a little bit in Chester.
Yeah.
Yeah,
maybe some in Benton.
There may be across. I don't know if they picked. I don't think they came across the interstate.
Oh, I couldn't remember if they did or not.
Yeah, I think they actually ran up to the interstate for the Love's truck stop.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly.
Oh, regardless, it's going to be borne by those taxpayers, and like I said, it's not expensive, or ratepayers, and it's expensive. Like I said, especially for we're already saying 2.1 million, a little over 2.1 million for these three categories. That could be very expensive very fast. So I was proud of Brad Jones taking the initiative to try to protect the grid and protect the ratepayers from bearing some of these expenses.
Agreed, and the reference point is he's talking about is the gentleman who actually talked at that meeting too. That meeting was broken into 2 videos. The first video got us pretty much to the end of where the vote was with the rate increase, and then the second video was pretty much all this guy and what was going on with him. And just to give you some chronological order there, he had been in front of the commission before.
2020.
Yeah, and this was back with Jeff Graves. And Jeff Graves pretty much told me, he said, look, you're at the end of my line. I don't have the electricity there to service you. And, without a guarantee of anything being built, he's like, I can't go in there and I'm gonna have to build another substation, and it just wasn't feasible whatsoever. And the guy, you're probably talking millions and millions of dollars to put a substation in to feed something like that.
Yeah,
That's at today's price is probably, I would say it's probably bordering 10 million. But I don't know that, I'm speculating here, but yeah, Brad did a great job in upholding that there and doing what was in the best interest of his ratepayers. So kudos to you, Brad. That was an outstanding job. Some other stuff that I'm going to talk about in there. It was brought up in that meeting that Dixon Street, there's a bid for a project on Dixon Street.
Yeah.
Now, that bid,
We thought it was
they thought it was $2 million.
Yeah.
It was going to be $2 million, and then they tell us that come to find out, there's going to be $5.5 million, and they were using that there as a reasoning for the rates to go up. They needed to generate more money to pay through the rate increases because things are going up like this. Well, I got a copy of the Alderman's packet for tomorrow night, and you know what? One thing that the City of Lexington has always done is they take the lowest bid. That's what government does. And if you go back in and look at that bid sheet, a little over $2 million was the low bid. Now the highest bid was sitting a little over $5 million. So yeah, it did go up, but there was a bid that high, but the low bid was closer to what they originally thought. So that's kind of misleading to the aldermen and kind of scares them into voting for for a rate increase, which that's not a good thing. Now, Alderman Wildridge did ask the question at that meeting of Justin Roach was how many customers do we have on in the utilities department? And he said almost 11,000. So I'm figuring 10,950, 10,950, almost 11. We're almost there. Well, the gentleman who was giving the presentation is like, well, I've got those numbers. So he went back in and looked, and if I remember correctly, it was 6,300 in the county, and hold on a second, I've got it written down. Let me take a quick gander.
I think it was around 10-2 or something in total.
Actually, it wasn't even that. There was roughly 6,300 in the county and 3,774 in the city, which comes to just a little over 10,000. Now, if you do some math here, some basic percentages, 10% of 10,000 is 1,000 people, which would be 11,000. Okay, now I did some more math today just to kind of get a gauge on this thing here, because they showed how much we're making right now, and how much we need to be making, and that's where we got that $2.182 million difference, 2.1, 2.2, however you want to round it up or round it down. When I looked at that there, based off of 10,000 customers, I came up with 1,720. Now I took that 17 and I multiplied it times 11,000. Well, guess what? That leaves us only a few $100,000 short of what we should be at. Now, for a department head to sit there and say almost 11,000, I would think that they would have their hand on the pulse of how many customers that they're serving. That's kind of a pretty important thing for a department head to know.
I would think, yeah.
And then to come to find out he's 10% off. And there's no way we grew 10% from the time that thing was drafted. Because, we're talking, in all these years we've got, there's no way that there's 1,000 new customers when we're basing on 10,000 customers. There's just no way in a year's time we had that much growth.
No.
We haven't seen it, obviously. So, I question the gentleman who gave the presentation if he was given all of the information, all of the hard data and all of the hard figures about how many customers we truly have in our system. Because if he didn't, then that would definitely show a shortfall and that we needed to raise rates. Now, you know what? I'm going by what I heard in that meeting. Is that concrete and provable? No, not unless we actually see the numbers that he actually received to create that rate survey. So, do we have it? We don't know. Would we ever get it? Who knows? I can tell you this here. at that meeting, what did he say? He had about 200 pages in that booklet.
Yeah.
He picked up a booklet that had about 200 pages in it. That's not what our aldermen ever saw. They just didn't see it. They never saw it. They got another booklet that was smaller. So they didn't get all of the data. They haven't researched all the data. And if I remember correctly, I think they got their hard copy Saturday morning, and then they voted on it on Monday. That goes back to, I don't know if you guys remember, back during the federal government had like 60 over 6,000 pages in the budget that they gave them like 3 days to review and vote on. I mean, why are our aldermen and our commissioners being, especially the commissioners, geez, their meetings are every 3 months. How can they not have at least a week or two of having their package to research it, digest it, have that information in hand to be able to go and talk to you, their constituents? What do you guys feel about this here? They barely have time to even just scan over it, because you know what? Most of these people, they work for a living. They have things just going on in their lives in addition to serving us. So, you know, some of these board members, some of these commissioners, you know, I feel for them. Some of them, I question if they've already got this information where the other ones don't have it.
Right. Well, that, or if they're not just handed to them in the meeting, and and they don't get any time to review it beforehand at all. It's just handed to them at that point. I don't know how you flip through 5 or 10 pages in 30 seconds and call roll. Yeah. Like I said, that's. I think it begs the question of transparency, and ability for people to know what's going on in their local government, and for people to understand and be able to, like you said, voice their opinion to their representative that's supposed to, once again, vote the way that their constituents want them to.
And I think the constituents, or all of us, the people, are just clueless to a lot of stuff that goes on. It's that lack of transparency that we've always complained about, and we still haven't gotten any resolution to that. And it continues to trudge along the same way. One thing, too, that, I go back in after that meeting. I got a lot of calls, on a lot of messages, texts, and talking with people. I hear this quite often. We need to vote them all out. And I'll say this here. That Tuesday morning, when I started getting calls and texts, I've always argued against that. We can't hold every single politician accountable or representative accountable without truly paying attention to how they vote and where they stand in reference to the people. How are they doing? What are they doing to benefit our lives? At that meeting, I'm going to tell you right now, when their 6-0 vote went across, people were calling me like, I can't argue with you. I mean, you want to replace them all? I just can't argue with you because they all voted for it. And I'm hoping that maybe some of these aldermen have actually seen the error of their ways, and instead of voting in this rate increase tomorrow, it's going to take and step up and question how they were told that they were more than solvent and they had money in the bank enough to give raises, and now they're $2.2 million in debt. I mean, I wouldn't vote for anything when you're telling me I'm in debt after you've already told me less than a year ago that we had plenty of money.
I agree.
It makes no sense.
Well, and it begs the question that Patrick brought up was how much waste and fraud do we have within it? I mean, I'm not saying that we have definitive proof of the fraud, but I think he highlighted some very good instances of waste that we have going on, where he's talking about having 6 to 7 people out there, half of which are just watching or not doing anything. When he was getting utilities installed at some of the homes he was building. And the other thing being that, we have once again a lot of failing infrastructure that we know ahead of time has problems. It's been problematic for a long time. And, when we have these severe weather events, whether it's, a large freeze for a significant amount of time, or we end up with a large volume of rain over a short period of time, and, continue to fail, for instance, the GE, behind what used to be GE Williams, the culvert that blew out the road back there. Yeah. Something that we've known about for some time. Why don't we, once again, take some time and plan ahead, find a nice day, and fix some of this stuff, and instead of, once again, getting into a reactionary state in the middle of a catastrophe, having people come out on call, or spending, 1.5, 2 times the amount of money to get something replaced and prepared, and most times just putting another Band-Aid on it to try to get by and limp by for however long it takes.
That happens quite often. We don't have, we lack preventive maintenance, and you can see that. If you ride around town, We were in Huntington, I think it was Monday, Huntington, Monday evening. And I was driving downtown, I was looking at some of those old houses, man, and they've got some beautiful old houses up there. We don't have that here in Lexington. I mean, anything falls apart, it gets torn down. Last night, and this is something that just absolutely befuddled me, the mayor, Adient, is going to rent the Brown Shoe Building where the election commission used to be. Now, back during Eddie Bray's administration, I remember AutoZone was going to rent it, and the problem they've got a leaking roof. Now, this is back during Eddie's administration, and apparently this roof's been leaking for a long time. What did the mayor said? He showed Adient about that there. They said they weren't worried about it. They could work around that area where it's leaking. And instead of trying to fix it, I think he said, I'm hoping a strong wind comes and blows that building down.
Yeah.
I mean, what on earth? We need to repair the problems that we've got. If not, then we got to tear it down, and it's going to cost taxpayers lots of money. It's waste. That is waste because we don't fix things.
Yeah, well, it's maintaining the assets that we have. I mean, it is a large structure that, I mean, it has significant value. You know, I mean, it needs repairs. But once again, it kind of goes back to the same thing, almost like the hospital up here, where we sold that for $100 or $1,000. It was pretty much nothing. Same things happened to a few other county and small municipal hospitals in this general area. With a guarantee that they were going to come in and staff it and put some money into it and make it better and everything. But once again, significant asset that, like I said, we sold for not much. That being said, we do have a operating hospital now that's doing leaps and bounds better than it has now. I know they spend a tremendous amount of money, and it is continuing to serve us. And like I said, they've done this in several other communities too, Perry County over in Linden, and Decatur County, and like I said, have brought back hospitals that were failing. Still, at the same time, though, it is once again probably one of the larger assets that was owned by the county and city, and like I said, we did sell it to them, for
Peanuts, right?
Pennies on the dollar. And like I said, I don't even know if you can say pennies on the dollar. That may be a little far stretch. But anyways, like I said, it's glad to be that it's back open and everything, but at the same time, so we do need to be cognizant of the assets that we have and maintain to keep them in good shape, and like I said, to preserve their value, because that they're stewards of the assets that are owned by the people.
Exactly.
That's really what it boils down to.
And it goes back in, all the fussing about the schools and the roof systems and the mold. Same thing, we saw the mold and the damage out at the health department. And here we are, we're going to be building a new health department. Now, are we going to maintain that, or are we going to have to look at 30, 40 years down the road where we got to tear it down because we got mold in it again because we're not maintaining it? These are things here that your tax dollars should go to. And there is money budgeted for all of this. It just does not get used as it should. Now, I'm going to go back in here to the city, and then we're going to cut this thing short. We'll cut it over. I know it's been a long time. Like I said, I'm really hoping that the Board of Aldermen not only hold off on approving these rate increases without asking a lot of questions. I think they need to table this here till they get some answers. But I'm going to say this here. If they were told that there was surplus money just so they could get raises passed, and then they're turning around and saying, hey, we're short $2.1 million, somebody needs to get ridden up, sent home, and put on notice that, you know what, you do this here a couple more times and you're gone. We don't need people like this working in the city. And this is the good old boy system where they continue to protect their own. It's like, what was it, $16 million that was misappropriated. I think the comptroller, the auditor had to fix over close to half of the city's budget, and there was nothing said about it. Nothing was done. We don't need little verbal reprimands in a meeting to flex muscles. We need to actually do some documentation and set these people on the course. If you're not going to fix the problems, then we'll get rid of you and we'll find more people who can actually come in here and do the job. It's that simple. That's in the best interest of the taxpayers. And pay attention to how these people vote. Pay attention to where they stand on this here. That is imperative to know really who you need to vote for. But I'm going to tell you right now in closing, if you want to look at how to fix the problems here, it's very simple. Show up to meetings. I'm going to tell you, when people showed up last night, I mean, there was pushback. When citizens get involved, there's always pushback, and politicians back down. You know, you guys, I'll take for instance the pet tax that the county passed, unbeknownst to you, but the county commissioners were fed bad information from the mayor. He said that he talked to all the vets. Come to find out, he had only talked to one. And you know what? You guys got up there and you screamed and yelled and said, "Look, I don't want to be penalized for doing the right thing," and that's what was going to happen. So, you know, I think you guys really should, you know, you stood up there, and guess what happened? That resolution got abolished, and that pet tax went away. Last year, 74-cent property tax increase. Fred Ellis made the motion for it. You guys showed up to the meetings. You got up there and talked. You pushed back, and guess what? Yeah, did it get completely gone? No, but I think it got down to what, 12 cents, was it? 12.5 cents? I mean, if it wasn't for your pushback, we would have had a 74-cent property tax increase last year. When you show up to the meetings, when you get loud and you push back on these politicians, they bow down to you because there's one thing that they want. They want to get reelected. It's a thirst for power. And I'm going to tell you right now, aldermen and commissioners, they make less than $1,000 a month, and I get people who argue, well, they only show up for a meeting for a couple of hours. You know what? That is so far from the truth of what they deal with. I'll tell you right now, I speak to commissioners and aldermen, probably 20, 30 hours by myself per month. You know, I take up a lot of their time because I'm trying to get information so I can share it with you guys. These guys have a lot of conversations. They deal with politics a lot during their lives. And aldermen and mayor, aldermen I think make $800, commissioners I think $600, I believe is what they get paid per month. They don't make a lot of money. You know, there's some perks there, but you know, your elected officials and your employees, that's where the money's made at. You know, what I think the sheriff and the sheriff and the mayor probably they're the two top dogs. But I mean, they're well over 6 figures a year, well over $100,000. I think the mayor's over 120. Yeah, judge would be another one. No, that's where the money's being made. But you know. So when you're looking at these things here, I'm not asking you to give slack to aldermen and commissioners. Not by no means. Definitely step up and speak your mind to them. But pay attention to how they vote. Pay attention to where they stand and what they're trying to do to help you out as a citizen. Not all of them are bad. We have some good people that actually serve us. We need to make sure that we're conscientious of them.
Yeah, and I think some do, like I said, also serving their constituents in their ward or where they represent. Do a decent job of representing those people, and it may be not in agreement with another district. And like I said, that's what they're there somewhat for. But as far as the overall voting of it is making sure that everyone is well informed of it. I think that's where we've somewhat struggled here in the past, is not making people well informed, and then also not allowing them the opportunity to really voice their opinion or give feedback to their elected officials either before the meeting or even in the meeting. That was one of the reasons that prompted where I went up and addressed them right off the bat and wanted to make sure that people were allowed to voice their opinions, was because the meeting where the vote that took place on the regional or the residential planning or building inspection program was they didn't allow public comment before they voted on it before. And that's pretty hard for people to stomach, because I don't know how you can essentially vote as their representative without knowing what their thoughts are on something.
Right.
I mean, you can guess and assume, but I don't think that's the best way for our democratic republic to work. I mean, that's one of our foundational principles. It's protected First Amendment rights that, like I said, allow us to speak freely and to address our public officials about matters of public concern, especially in public forums. And I think that's where we need to make sure that we have people that come to the meetings and, like I said, that are able to voice their opinions in an informed manner. And so that requires them to have some information going into it. They can't, generally speaking, packets and stuff aren't handed out to anyone in the audience. It's just to the commissioners or aldermen. And so, like I said, you give any feedback whatsoever, even if you do come, because you're not able to see it. So that's one thing I think that we need to try to work on, is having some way to put out this information to the public beforehand, so that they can have it in their hands and like I said, talk to their representatives.
Right, and I'll say one thing here. Commissioner Andy Anderson actually does that on occasion.
Yeah.
He'll post up the whole. He'll post up the agenda and his package. So,
Yeah.
So if you ever go up there, it's I'm not sure how it's listed. We always try to share that when Andy shares that, so you have that information, so you can see the packet. But just remember, we're trying to bring as much information to you as we possibly can. When we send you the agenda and we post that up there, take a look at the agenda. If there's anything you got a question about, pop up in the comments and say, what does this mean? Or what does it entail? And if you don't feel comfortable contacting your commissioner, but call your commissioner and talk to him and say, what's going on here? And tell them where you get information and tell them where you stand. Find out what your commissioner knows. And if your commissioner's kept in the dark, then that's a problem. If the commissioner can't answer questions that you may have with that there, you need to have your commissioner get up on the mayor about that, because that's his job as chairman, to make sure that they're informed. But the only other thing I would say here is, I keep people saying, get out and vote, get out and vote, get out and vote. And you know what, and that is obviously is the most important aspect of it. But I'm going to add something to it. I think good people need to step up and run. Because if there's nobody to vote for but the same old thing, then you're going to get the same old thing. We need to take and just, find people who want to run, and we don't know everything, trust me, but we're more than welcome to help anybody who wants to step up and run, to learn, to educate them. There are schools and stuff for the city and for the county and they're required to go to these schools, but there's additional information. One of the things that we try to do more so than anything else is research, and that takes up a tremendous amount of time. And just like the politicians, we've got jobs, we've got families, we've got other things we do. So this here isn't just this isn't our only thing that we focus on. So we have to balance stuff in there too. And we get people who message and contact us, and we try to do everything we can to help out and give them answers to it. And if they've got issues, we help them. We'll walk them through it. We'll guide them, and we'll take on their behalf and actually reach out to try to get answers for them. That's what we feel like as just being a good community member. That's what we feel like, how we can help out as much as we can. But the key thing is to keep an eye on the page and the information that's up here. It's all there for you to see, and don't ever. I couldn't tell you how many phone calls, texts, messages I get per day. People that step into my shop and talk to me. It happens every day, and I don't mind it. And fortunately, I met Blake last fall over a situation happening with a local business owner in TDOT in the city that we've been trying to help out, and we've reached out and had conversations. We've actually had meetings with Brock Martin and with Senator Ed Jackson. We're trying to help out there as well. Meeting Blake is, I've been tickled to death. He's obviously he's an attorney, so he has much deeper knowledge of law than I do. But he has the same passion. He wants to make sure that he's helped taking care of his community. I tell you right now, I'm trying to twist his arm to run for office, but we'll see how that goes. But anyway, if you guys got questions, if you watch the video, we certainly appreciate it. I'm going to tell you, we're still sitting over 100 people viewing right now, which is pretty damn good. We appreciate you coming up here. We'll try to do more of these here because it's a little bit easier than doing a 2-mile long post. It takes up a lot of time.
Yeah, it does.
And I know you guys don't want to read all that stuff, but we'll try to do this here again. But yeah, we certainly appreciate you tuning in and paying attention, and we'll continue to do everything we can to keep you informed. Anything else you got to say in closing?
I don't. Like I said, we're just trying to help out the local citizens. Good people trying to help other good people. I think that's been the bedrock of Tennessee. We're the volunteer state for the longest time, and like I said, we've got great people here. And like I said, I just want to see everybody succeed and have a place they love and enjoy. And like I said, somewhere they can call home.
That's it. That's it. Alrighty. Well, y'all have a good one, and like I said, we'll get you updated after the meeting tomorrow night. I don't know if we'll do a video or if we'll do a post, but we'll update you. It may not be Friday. It may be Monday before we get to that point. All depends on how our week goes. Y'all have a great night.
Appreciate it.